Welcome to this explainer. We're jumping straight into what is, honestly, a completely terrifying thought experiment based on the daily reality of our ancestors. You know, we love to romanticize the past, right? We picture grand castles, brave knights, and lavish feasts. But if you actually look at the historical data, it paints a completely different, way grimmer picture. So we're going to strip away all that fantasy today. Let's look at the actual, structured reality of what it took to survive the absolute most miserable time to be alive in human history.
All right, so let's try this. Imagine you close your eyes right now, and bam, when you open them, you've been teleported directly back into the Middle Ages. You look around, taking it all in. Now, the very first question you gotta ask yourself is, who are you in this world? Like, what is your status?
Now I know exactly what you're hoping for. You're praying you spawned in as a king, a queen, or maybe a really wealthy noble. Well, statistically speaking, the mathematical probability of that happening is basically zero. You, my friend, are a peasant. And your grand estate? Yeah, it's a one-room hovel. There is no glass in the windows, just these uneven wooden shutters that let in the freezing cold, the flies, and the dark. And the floor? It's dirt, literally just dirt. Every single step you take kicks up dust that you'll be breathing in all day long.
And get this, that single room? That's not just your bedroom. It is your kitchen, your living room, your storage unit, and your emergency farm all rolled into one. Because guess what? To keep warm, the animals sleep inside with you. We're talking chickens, goats, maybe a pig. Plus, you're sharing this tiny space with your whole family, parents, kids, siblings, and probably that one uncle who showed up 2 years ago and somehow never left. Oh, and you definitely don't have a mattress. You get a cloth bag stuffed with straw, which acts as a permanent rent-free home for lice and fleas. So yeah, privacy, that is a concept that simply does not exist for you.
And because most peasant houses had an open fire burning right smack in the middle of the room with no chimney, the smoke just sits there. You're breathing it in year after year. Now combine that with a total lack of hygiene. The medieval scent profile is basically this potent, inescapable blend of wet dog, sweaty armpits, rotten milk, and burned wood. And honestly, that's just how the room smells before anyone even stands up to start a brutal day of manual labor.
Okay, so you wake up on your flea-infested straw bed, your back is aching and your stomach's rumbling. Good news, breakfast is ready. Bad news, it's pottage. Now, pottage isn't some fresh, hearty meal. It is a perpetual stew. Imagine a pot of boiling water that has been simmering since your great-great-grandfather was alive. They literally don't make a new stew. They just toss today's grains, roots, random vegetables, or whatever pebble fell in directly into yesterday's pot. So the stew you are about to eat is quite literally older than most of the people sleeping in your room.
The sheer ruggedness of this dining experience is wild. You don't get silverware, you get a stick. A stick that someone carved with a knife, which, by the way, is the exact same knife they used yesterday to castrate a goat. Hygiene just hasn't been invented yet, folks. And to go with your ancient stew, you get a piece of bread. But we're not talking soft, warm sourdough here. This bread is practically a medieval weapon. It's made of cheap flour mixed with literal fillers, like sawdust, bark, or powdered grass. It is harder than your will to live. You actually have to soak it in the pottage just to give your teeth a fighting chance. But honestly, breaking a tooth on sawdust bread is the absolute least of your worries. The terrifying part, and the absolutely crucial point here, is that the food itself could actively attack you. See, medieval rye was constantly infected with a fungus called ergot. If you ate this infected bread, you weren't getting nutrients, you were getting poisoned. It caused intense hallucinations, gangrene, and in extreme cases, it would just outright kill you. So simply eating breakfast was literally a gamble with your life.
Naturally, you're going to want something to wash down that dangerous bread, but you absolutely cannot drink the water. The rivers and wells were completely contaminated with parasites, animal waste, and literally whatever the town upstream felt like dumping that day. Drinking water would kill you faster than a sword. So what did they do? Everyone, even the young kids, drank beer first thing in the morning. Specifically something called small beer, which was a weak, low-alcohol brew. Because the brewing process involved boiling the water and fermenting it, it actually killed the dangerous bacteria, making it basically the only safe hydration option you had.
All right, so you've survived breakfast. You had your ancient stew, your sawdust bread, your morning beer. But about 20 minutes later, bam! A deep, twisting pain hits you like a spear from the inside. Something in that generational stew was definitely not meant for human consumption. You need to go, right now. Which brings us to the ultimate survival question. Where exactly is the bathroom?
Well, I've got terrible news for you. There is no bathroom. You have two incredibly bleak options here.
Option 1, you can squat over a wooden bucket right there inside your one-room house. And yeah, spoiler alert, your entire family is watching you. Plus, it's the same bucket everyone else uses. Option 2, you go outside and add your emergency to the public street, which happens to be exactly where every other person in your town has done the exact same thing.
Now, if you choose the bucket, eventually that bucket has to be emptied. And how did they do that? People would just open those uneven wooden shutters and hurl their waste directly out the window. If they were feeling particularly polite that day, they might shout a warning, "Gardez-vous." It comes from French meaning "watch out for the water." Except, come on, we all know it absolutely was not water raining down on the poor peasants below.
And all of this creates a totally horrific concoction: street sludge. The street outside your door is this bubbling brown river made up of human waste, animal dung, rotting food, dead rats, and rainwater. When it rains, it floods your dirt floor. When it's hot out, it literally steams. Kids play near it, and the whole mess flows downhill right into the river that the town drinks from. This sludge was basically a masterclass in spreading dysentery, typhoid, and lifelong intestinal parasites. People were sick so often, they honestly just assumed that feeling terrible was the natural human condition.
So let's say your stomachache isn't going away. Actually, it's getting worse. You need medical attention. But you don't get a doctor. Real doctors are strictly for kings and bishops. Instead, you get the village multitasker. This is the exact same guy who cuts your hair, sharpens knives, pulls teeth, and he probably brews beer in the exact same bucket he uses for amputations. He definitely doesn't wear gloves, and he certainly isn't washing his hands. I mean, soap existed, sure, but it was way too expensive to waste on a peasant.
Before you can even explain your stomach cramps, the multitasker already has his diagnosis ready, and it's based entirely on flawed medieval science. See, they believed the human body was controlled by 4 magical fluids, or humors: blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile. So according to this guy, the reason you feel like you're dying isn't the parasite-infested water or the hallucinogenic bread. Nope, it's simply because one of your 4 humors is out of balance. So what's his brilliant treatment plan? Step 1. Bloodletting. He takes a rusty blade, which looks suspiciously like a butter knife, and drains your blood to rebalance you. Awesome! Now you're dehydrated and bleeding in the mud. Step 2. He might ask for your urine, not to run a test on it, but literally just to stare at it and guess what's wrong. Step 3. If you're somehow still sick, he's bringing out the leeches that he keeps in old bathwater. And Step 4. When absolutely none of that works, his final medical advice is just prayer. Because clearly, you've just angered the heavens.
Now, if the cutting, the leeches, and the prayer don't cure you, the village is going to start getting a little suspicious. People start whispering. If you don't get better, or even worse, if you try to cure yourself using some basic herbs, you are crossing into very dangerous territory. Simply knowing a little too much about herbs, or, I don't know, boiling your soup with a little too much confidence, that is highly suspect behavior. Suddenly, you aren't just the sick peasant anymore. You're accused of being the village witch.
And once that accusation drops, you are dragged straight to the town square to face the ultimate inescapable trap. They look at you and ask, "Are you a witch?" It's completely lose-lose. If you say no, the crowd decides, aha, that is exactly what a deceitful witch would say to hide their identity. But if you say yes, well, you've just confessed and basically scheduled your own execution. They aren't looking for actual evidence, you guys. They just need someone to blame for a bad harvest or a dead cow.
So what they do is leave it up to God to decide your guilt through a trial by ordeal. One of the most popular methods was tying you up and throwing you into the river. And it operated on this flawless, terrible logic. If you sink, congratulations, you're innocent. Except, unfortunately, you've just drowned. But if you float, well, that means you're guilty of witchcraft, so they pull you out and kill you anyway. Like the source material points out, logic really wasn't humanity's strong point back then.
Let's just take a second to recap the timeline of your day. It hasn't even been 24 hours. You woke up covered in fleas, you ate a potentially hallucinogenic generational stew, you got bled dry by a guy using a rusty butter knife, and by evening, you're facing execution for witchcraft, all because you knew how to boil herbs. Things fall apart incredibly fast. And the craziest part, this wasn't some rare unlucky day, this was just the normal baseline of existence. Your ancestors lived exactly like this for years, decades even, and against all mathematical odds, they somehow survived long enough to pass down their genes so that you could be sitting here today. Literally every single modern comfort you enjoy is built on a lifetime of unbelievable endurance from them. So next time you find yourself getting frustrated by slow Wi-Fi or a slightly cold cup of coffee, ask yourself,
Could you have survived even 24 hours in their shoes? Thank you so much for exploring this brutal history with me on today's Explainer. Keep asking questions and keep learning.